איימי, נתחיל?
מצוין. תודה רבה. So the Jewish Law Workshop is honored to host this evening in honor of the book of Professors Yuval and oh my gosh, so I just had a bunch of interviews. We're very honored to host the workshop on your book, on Maimonides' theory of tort law. In contrast with the former models of tort law that have typically been presented in Jewish law, the model of Professor Wartig and Professor Hott, which represents Jewish law as being liability in Jewish law as being predicated on ownership, and in contrast with Albeck's theory, which presents Jewish law as being predicated on negligence alone, the book suggests a novel approach which views Maimonides' tort theory as predicated on a differential model of tort law. That is, Maimonides does not have one way of identifying the party who's liable for the injury, and he does not impose a single standard of care. Rather, there's a differential model, and Maimonides has different ways of determining which party will be liable and at what level of responsibility that person is to be held. The main principle that is outlined in the book is the effective control principle in conjunction with negligence. And perhaps one way of viewing several of Maimonides' rulings that seem to deviate from the intuitive version of determining which party should be identified as liable for the harm, which party has the effective control, is a source of the effective control. In certain instances, the plaintiff perhaps can be identified as the party who has the effective control. And to bring an example that is brought in the work, if one party is sleeping, there's on one hand, Maimonides rules that there's strict liability for any injury that a person causes through their body, and yet he has an exceptional ruling in Hilchot Chovelu Mazik 111 that's pointed out in chapter 3, wherein if a party injures another party in their sleep, there's no liability, yet it's direct injury caused by a body. Perhaps if we look at the continuation of that Mishnah and identify that Maimonides, in fact, deems the plaintiff as the agent responsible and the plaintiff as the party with the effective control under the situation, because that party chose to expose themselves to a certain danger. So perhaps a way to explain certain counterintuitive rulings that might be found in Maimonides, for example, when two parties can equally be identified as the party as the source of the effective control. For example, when the defendant takes an animal through the public sector and the plaintiff, or through the marketplace, and the plaintiff has her or hers articles out, and it might be easier for the defendant to simply muzzle the animal. Maimonides, like the Gemara, determines that liability, that there's an exemption for shen v'regel in the public center, in the public sector. So perhaps a supplement or a particular dimension of Maimonides' tort theory can be that there's also an effort to impose effective control on the plaintiff, to ask the plaintiff, well, was it possible for you to preempt a given harm? This novel model that's presented in the work of Maimonides' differential theory of tort liability was reflected on by Professor Calabresi, and shortly we'll watch a short clip that involves his response to the work, and that will be followed by a discussion of Professor Englard and Professor Shore and Professor Porat, and a question and answer period.